Hey everybody, welcome to today's Take Heart. It's been announced that in England as of Monday we're going to be having new restrictions coming in that will kind of not take us back to lockdown by any means, but for me at least have been a bit of a harsh reminder of the fact that this is going to be with us for some time yet. Probably because of that, I have been drawn to a passage about perseverance, and in Hebrews chapter 12 verse 1 it says this: "And let us run with perseverance the race marked out for us, fixing our eyes on Jesus, the pioneer and perfecter of faith." The bit that captures me from that particular sentence, today anyway, is where it says at the start, "Let us run with perseverance." The Christian life in a whole bunch of places in Scripture is compared to a race. And it's a really helpful metaphor, I think, because in a race there are a number of things that are really helpful. And if we want to keep going, if we want to keep on keeping on, which of course we have to, we want to do that with perseverance. There's a few things that can help. Here's the first one. In a race, it's important to manage your pace. And so I've read all these books by top athletes that talk about the importance of developing this rhythm of pushing yourself, but also resting and replenishment. And managing pace, there's a real art to it, because what you want to do is you want to get to the finish line having spent everything, having left everything out on the track. You don't want to have more in the tank when you cross the finish line. But at the same time, you don't want to fall down like a half a mile from the finish line. You need to get to the line. So judging your pace is something that very skilled athletes learn how to do. This is true of tennis players. So I remember reading these studies about how tennis players, the best ones, have this ability to just reduce their heart rate in between games. They have their little routine. They sit on a chair, they eat a banana, they put a towel over their head, whatever it is. But they're trying to just rest as well as they can in that moment, because they understand that that is the key to prolonging high performance. And for us, as we go through what we're going through, it's obviously physically, emotionally very draining. And so because it's happening for such a long period of time as well, all the more reason for us to be incredibly wise about managing our pace and keeping an eye on that. One of the things that I just find fascinating about Jesus, because he's so different from me, is his ability to do this really well, despite the fact he was under huge pressure, despite the fact he literally his ministry is 3 years. So he's literally got 3 years to save the world. Can you imagine? I can imagine if someone said to you, you've got 3 years and you're going to save the world. What would you do? I know what I would do is basically run around frantically like a headless chicken, panicking and trying to do everything. And Jesus, oh my word, he gives himself, but he also rests, because he understands that matters when you're a human being. And he teaches his disciples to do the same thing. So there's this one particular occasion in Mark 6 where the disciples are exhausted. They've been giving of themselves. And he says, Mark 6 verse 31, "Come away with me by yourselves to a quiet place and get some rest." And so if you want to run with perseverance, one of the things that for all of us we've got to challenge ourselves on is, am I judging my pace well at the moment? And that's something we want to keep under constant review, I think, in the months ahead of us. Second thing that can be really helpful is to keep perspective. If we want to persevere, to keep our perspective. It's hard to do that when things are challenging and when things are tough. Imagine you're in a marathon and you get to mile 21 and you hit the wall and you're sweaty and it's exhausting and you're in pain. In a moment like that, it's really hard to remember, why did I sign up for this again? Why did I think this was a good idea? And that's because the immediate presses in, and the immediate is painful, and it's overwhelming, and it's right in front of us. And the same is true of life. When things are very hard, or even when they're good but they're just frantic, it's really hard to have perspective. Where am I going again? Why am I doing this again? That's where Scripture's so helpful, because it gives us this eternal perspective. And Paul, who went through all sorts of hardships in his life, he writes this in 2 Corinthians 4 verse 16. "Therefore we do not lose heart. Though outwardly we are wasting away, yet inwardly we are being renewed day by day. For our light and momentary troubles are achieving for us an eternal glory that far outweighs them all." So we fix our eyes not on what is seen, but on what is unseen, since what is seen is temporary, but what is unseen is eternal. Now when I read that, I want to say to Paul, excuse me, Paul, my troubles are not light and they're not momentary. Do you have any idea how many nappies I have to change every single day? And then I look at his troubles and I think, hang on a second, you know, he was beaten up all the time. He was stoned and left for dead on one occasion. He got shipwrecked 3 times, among other things. His troubles don't seem very light and momentary either. And what he's not saying is that the pain and the grief that we experience in this world, the suffering that we endure and that we encounter around us, he's not saying that's not a big deal. But what he is saying is that when we take these things, heavy and real and kind of never-ending sometimes as they seem, and we compare them to the eternal glory that we have ahead of us, then only in the light of that comparison, but nevertheless, when we do that comparison, these troubles that we're experiencing now are, and we will find that they are, but light and momentary. And elsewhere he talks about that in 1 Corinthians 15, that there's going to come a moment where in the twinkling of an eye we are transformed and we stand before the Lord of life and we walk into eternal glory. And when that happens, we'll realize how light and momentary the troubles we're experiencing now are, but only in that light. But that's a perspective we can remind ourselves of regularly, although it's hard to do so. Martin Luther once said, "I only have 2 days in my calendar, this day